the 11th of the 1st, 2020, and I'm continuing with my uploads due to what I've been discussing with regard to a vendetta of hate crime and human rights violations. Um, as regards my daily updates in this little documentary, nothing has changed about the disparaging comments and defamatory claims that are being made. I'm still awaiting responses from the Ombudsman, and I'm still awaiting responses from politicians with regard to the crime of hate crime being perpetrated in Tralee. Now, in all these uploads, I've clearly stated how hate crime is perpetrated, why hate crime has been perpetrated against me, and the different effects that it has had on my livelihood, and the different wrongdoings that have occurred. Briefly, before I start on the topic that I want to actually discuss in this upload, I think it's very important to actually address specifically the responsibility of authorities when it comes to rectifying hate crime in society. For any mature adult to be experiencing hate crime is, you know, it's a situation that not many people experience. But for adults to be perpetrating hate crime and to be causing problems that you wouldn't expect from adults is very, it's a huge concern, because I think for adults, any citizens in a society, taking for example what's occurring with me here in Tralee, a small town, a changed town. It's a transformed town in the past 2 years, especially with what's going on. But it's, when collectively orchestrated, it's very easy for individuals, trendsetters, whatever, social influencers, whatever they want to consider themselves as, to collectively orchestrate a vendetta to disparage and destroy a person's life that they don't like. And that's exactly just what has happened in my experience that I've been enduring since, not only since I was sexually assaulted over 10 years ago, but more so since 2016, 2015, 2016. The responsibility of authorities and politicians to address people in society that have decided to defame a person's character and to abuse the system and to implicate professionals and to jeopardize their positions so as to achieve their ends is all very serious. So that's just a little thing I wanted to say about hate crime and the authorities, and how it's a disrespect of society and the system and the agencies within the system. So besides the issue of hate crime that I've been experiencing, there's also the more serious issue that I've expressed in other uploads about spiritual violence and spiritual assault. Now, as a survivor of sexual assault and revenge porn, we all know about sexual predators. And similarly, when in the experience of spiritual assault, there are spiritual predators. I've basically discussed in the most succinct possible terms as possible about the assault of my light body. When I first experienced sexual assault in 2004 and 2005, I had to recover from that experience. When anybody has an experience like I had, that involved addiction as well, and other matters that I had to address myself, and that sends a person's body into a state of shock and change and need for transformation. So in 2006, after the experience of sexual assault that I have recovered from, and that wasn't rectified by authorities or anything like that, it was just something I got over, um, I began my journey of recovery. Um, I had always been a spontaneous, adventurous individual. Loved traveling. I've been to China, I've been to Cuba, I've been to Germany, I've been to Italy. I've travelled all over the world. I've been to North Africa, I've been to the UK. I've travelled, and I've always met the most interesting individuals on my journeys. And on my journeys, I've always learned something from someone or something from somewhere, and it's always been a learning experience. And travel and adventure is not something that you can learn from a book. It was an experience. It's been an experience for me to have travelled where I've travelled and to have met who I've met. In particular, when I was on the Great Wall of China, I met a particularly interesting individual that lived and worked on and by the wall, and that was just one memorable experience. But I've met many, and they've all taught me, and they've all, you know, helped me become the person I am today. Um, After I experienced what I experienced and began recovery with the fellowship in 2006, that's when my transformative work began. Um, I'd say at the age of 12, I was reading the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan Book of the Dead and Sophie's Diaries, is it? There's other, always had an inquiring mind, always precocious, always philosophical, always interested and very much influenced by those that were around me. So I had always been that way inclined with an inquiring mind when I was young, and I had my experiences developing as a young adult that taught me again what I needed to be taught, but wasn't from the books. It was from experience and travel and journeying and adventures. So in 2006, when I had to correct my defects of character and amend my wrongdoings and become an adult and basically grow up, that was when I decided to change my path and to work with angelology. And the studies of angelology and other interesting developmental spiritual studies all helped me to become a light worker. Um, in the past 2 years, um, I've stated how my body, my light body, as an angelic light being, sentient being, has been destroyed basically in this vendetta that I'm experiencing. Um, my light body and my physical body have been very, very seriously affected. But prior to all of this happening, um, on my journeys and throughout the experiences that I've had, um, I acquired the most amazing gifts, light, and blessings. Um, the experience is difficult to explain, and it's not something that I choose to discuss so openly on the internet or online. But due to all that's happening, um, I feel kind of obligated to just kind of establish a few little things because I've already touched on the matter of identity theft. I've distinguished between the sexual assault and spiritual assaults that I've experienced, but there's also the issues of identity theft that are involved in this vendetta of hate crime that I'm also experiencing. And as well as the identity theft, I've also experienced soul theft, and that has involved the bodily integrity violations. Now, it's one thing for a person to acquire a person's information, which has happened in my situation. In 2016, my premises were violated. Information was acquired, and the spooky thing about it all is that the people involved almost went on the same experiences and journeys and adventures that I had experienced throughout a decade or even more. My entire history was just totally violated from when I was a young child over in Germany, up to even when I was over in Germany again and the UK. Um, all of my personal travel experiences were violated. Um, and that has become a part of this identity theft that has occurred, and has also become a part of this soul theft that has occurred also. Um, the bodily integrity violations being the biggest aspect of all of this, and also the ancestral assault that has also occurred. So the issue of a light body being damaged by unethical means is very, very serious for any light worker. For anyone to claim the identity of another person is one serious aspect, but to be claiming the light, gifts, and blessings of another sentient being, another spiritual person, is not positive. Now, as I've said, I've experienced very serious defamation as well. And as a light worker, I don't know how they would be able to explain how a light worker would have been culpable of the horrendous lies that have been explained about me publicly, um, and defamatorily in Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland, and beyond. As I've said, there's been not only uh, creative theft, the work I have done has been violated. There's not just been intellectual theft. There's, you know, lots of research and study that I did over a 10-year period to become a light worker and to learn what I needed to learn. Um, that has all been violated. That's the only word I'm choosing for this experience. It's a violation, not just of the Human Rights Declaration, but a violation of my spiritual purpose, which involved fellowship work and which involved other humanitarian work with organisations that work for peace. Um, and as I've stated, peace campaign since 2006, and my interests and developments in peace studies um, began with my own peace with the past of for the people who raped and perpetrated revenge porn against me. Um, so basically, the purpose that I had worked for has been violated. Um, there's people jumping on the bandwagon, kind of a thing. In the most recent time of 2 years, um, in such a short space of time that I've had to work for over a decade, more than 10 years, I've had to work for the point that I've reached of, forgiveness, acceptance, letting go, all of those kind of concepts, which aren't easy for any human being, especially a human being that's been betrayed and lied to and violated and abused. But in the past 2 years, there have been individuals that have violated my bodily integrity and my light body, my soul light, um, etc. And they have inflicted very serious damages and harm. Now, the most interesting aspect of all of this is that to people who don't know any more or any better about the reality of what has happened or the truth of what has happened, um, the facts of the matter is that I have been on this journey since 2006, and as I'm already stating, my character has been defamed, and there have been claims about my personality that aren't accurate. There's been characteristics and traits used to describe me that aren't accurate. There are people that don't even know me, that haven't even spoken with me, that don't even have any experience of me, that say the most outrageous things. So that's all a part of this vendetta of hate crime. Um, Now, as a person in my situation, experiencing hate crime, I upload every day, um, just to set the record straight, because lies are dangerous, and to people that don't know any better, the purpose that I had worked for um, has been very seriously disrupted. Um, as I've said, since 2006, I've been doing this work in personal development and spiritual work for, God only knows how long, even before, since 2006. And what I find amusing is that I've encountered individuals that have taken a claim for what has seemingly been only a recent recovery for me. Um, that's an incorrect fact. It's not a fact, actually. That's just another blatant lie. Um, there are people that have taken credit for my progress and development that I've worked for by myself, self-taught, single-handedly. In the meantime, the said same culprits in the past 2 years have not only orchestrated hate crime and perpetrated the most serious of offences, but have also um, tried to get a free ride after acquiring unethically my precious gifts, light, and blessings that were bestowed upon me by those that I met on my journeys. Um, the serious aspect of all of this is that there are people that have very little regard for the offences, the spiritual offences. Now, there's the other offences with regards to my medical care and my legal rights and whatnot, my property rights, etc., that have already been violated, and the identity theft issue also. Um, but the other aspect of all of this is that the offences that are also spiritual offences are being exacerbated also, as well as the legislative offences that are being exacerbated as well. So this entire situation that people are capitalizing on and manipulating is all very worrying. Um, in the world of spiritual studies, faith, and religion, um, to have unethically acquired isn't, tolerable. Um, but to capitalize on another person's work and to take credit and acclaim for that they have not achieved themselves is also another unethical aspect of all of this. So, this idea of capitalizing on another person's experience and exploiting a situation for notoriety and acclaim is all very, very, very serious. Um, and that's a part of the experience I'm having with regard to hate crime. Now, I've already explained about the violations of privacy, particularly with my online data and whatnot. I've been contacting politicians, as I've said, since the legislative offences that I experienced occurred. Um, the assistance that I've sought has been intentionally obstructed. Um, I've contacted so many agencies, and those in this community, in this situation, involving themselves in my experience and perpetrating this vendetta, have misled people, have lied to people, have jeopardized people, have deceived people with a very serious lie that has disrupted this society. Um, there's a lot of interest in the area of self development and personal progress for many years now, and it's a popular industry. But there's always the next big thing, wanting to get to the next big position, and it has become apparent since my spiritual light body has been damaged that there have been people exploiting what has been stolen from me to gain their own notoriety. Um, and that's capitalizing on suffering. That's capitalizing on someone else's experience. That's capitalizing and exploiting someone else's purpose. And that's all unethical. And that's another serious aspect to this human rights violation offence that's occurring. That individuals perpetrating this vendetta and orchestrating this vendetta on a day-to-day basis that are preventing me from getting the rights that I'm required respected have been hell-bent on working on every day. Because I've had to send emails every day with regard to what I'm experiencing. And funnily enough, I've not received acknowledgements, but I have encountered a lot of false claims being stated, and individuals that don't even live with me, that don't even know me, causing the most serious of trouble. Now, from a forgiving perspective, if I was to be a forgiving person after all of what has occurred against me in the past 4 years, I could say, this has happened, move on. But the thing about it is, the very people that have destroyed my bodily integrity and perpetrated spiritual violence against me, and have continued unashamedly to defame me and to continuously disrupt my livelihood, are the very people that are exploiting and abusing the gifts that they've stolen from me. And this is a situation that I don't know is possible for any sentient being to forgive, because it's serious enough to have been spiritually violated and financially abused and medically disrespected, um, personally, from a private perspective, as a private citizen, as an adult woman in this situation, um, for other individuals to be developing a superiority complex and claiming to know better, and to be violating without any ethical practices even practiced, um, is just a very serious issue that politicians and authorities really need to consider properly. Um, as I keep saying, it's a sad sign of the times, and we all get signs, and everyone's looking for signs these days. And you know, it's sometimes very simple, black and white, common sense thinking and logic, without having to look for signs to know the facts of the matter from right and wrong. And as much as people want to be progressing, people have to be conscientious of the fact of damages caused to a person that was on a spiritual purpose and has been physically damaged as a consequence of very serious offences since giving birth and being married in Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland. Um, so basically, with regard to identity theft, the issue of soul theft is just as serious. Um, Exploiting a person um, is very worrying in a 21st century democracy. Making false accusations about a person is very serious. The false accusations that I'm experiencing, even today, um, it's I'm not even insulted. I'm more concerned that authorities aren't addressing this situation more seriously, because it would be just as easy for me to pick up the phone or even say up online what I think of such and such without knowing them. But I wouldn't, because that's not how adults behave. So this is these are the things that are happening in all of this violation of human rights and the disrespect, and you know, some people would call it ignorance. I'd call it just simple disrespect, that people don't understand already so far how serious things are, and they don't understand how serious it is to be joyriding on another person's spiritual journey. And they don't know how serious it is to destroy a person's bodily integrity after having experienced sexual assault over 10 years ago with the same culprits. So these are all things that authorities have to consider, because I've been very seriously defamed by people with no credibility and with no involvement with me, but have caused me very serious problems and owe me a very serious large amount. And that's going back to 2005 for the damages they've done to my career and the opportunities that they've decimated, and the medical negligence and the unlawful detainments and the legal violations and the implications of other issues that have occurred as well. So, as a peace campaigner and as a humanitarian and as an educator and as a mother and as a deserted wife, and as an adult and as a private citizen, I'm wondering, would the authorities and politicians and the intelligentsia in society um, ever confront how serious this is? Because I make decisions for myself. There isn't anyone else that can make decisions for me. Um, the fact that there's been no consultation with me or authorization for me or authorization for me for others to even discuss or comment or conduct any kind of research about anything with regard to me, or to formulate any kind of a report of any sort without me actually ever being involved. These are all very serious aspects of what is occurring. And that's the insanity of this situation, and that's the insanity of society. In sobriety, it's insanity that has to be addressed. My insanity of the past was addressed since 2006, and at this stage in 2020, I'm wondering, in the past 2 years, those that have come into this experience of recovery and sobriety and spirituality, have they ethically thought of the consequences about what's happening? So basically, there's the concepts of sexual assault and spiritual assault. There's the concepts of identity theft and soul theft. And then there's the very serious concepts of exploitation and violations. And as regards individuals intruding in my personal experience as a deserted wife and mother and teacher, um, and invalid now as well at this stage due to the medical negligence I've experienced, um, I'm wondering with all of these kind of serious things that I'm discussing, that I've shared about, I'm wondering, are the authorities and politicians not concerned about what is happening in this town? Um, there isn't anyone else that can tell my story. There isn't anyone that has any permission from me to exploit my experience or to capitalize on the spiritual gifts, blessings, and light that was stolen from me. So these are all very important factors that I would appreciate politicians and authorities and intelligent, creative, progressive, and positive minded individuals to bear in mind when facilitating deceit. Because the biggest deceptions in society cause the worst circumstances for everyone, because there's always consequences to all our actions. I've suffered the consequences of my actions long ago. I've recovered and I've moved on. What I'm experiencing is inflicted by other people's issues. So, this is the consequence of society not respecting um, human rights. What is happening is very serious. For people just to be ringing up and making false claims about a person, it's not only juvenile, but it's playground tactics. What I'm experiencing now at the moment, and I hope the authorities and politicians and like-minded individuals are all very seriously concerned, because if it happens, as I said, to me today, who will it be tomorrow? So I hope there's a conscience being developed about how serious all of this is, because I'll have to keep uploading every day, and any further violations of my freedom based on falsehoods and abuse of the system are all very serious after the damages I've already experienced that haven't been amended or haven't been compensated for. The violation of privacy is very serious into anyone's personal life. Identity theft is serious, and so is soul theft. And as I've said, there isn't anyone else to ever tell my story as it happened for me, which has involved many different experiences, and the exploitation and capitalization of another person's experience is also very serious and very unethical. So these are pointers and factors for those belittling and demeaning a person that they have gone to such expense and effort to cause so much trouble for. You can't kid a kidder, as they say. So, those kidding, those that they're making calls to, aren't kidding me with the lies that they're telling. And there have been many lies. So, this is all very relevant to the bigger issue of human rights violations that are occurring, and all very relevant to the vendetta of hate crime. Um, that's as much as I think would be relevant for this upload. So I hope that people understand the situation properly, and I hope people have their facts before any more, falsehoods and offences are ever relayed or perpetrated again, because what's already been done is already quite serious. And I think the politicians, with regard to consultation and authorization and whatnot, and the freedom of information, need to consider the information that's been withheld from me, that I have sought, and that hasn't been provided. And as regards individuals intruding, and as a mother, educator, and deserted wife, I hope the politicians are aware of how serious the situation is.